Welcome to the Betting Above the Rim podcast, episode 40. Today's date is March 25th. In today's podcast, we get into a couple of topics. Number one, we look at the moves in college basketball in regards to new coaches. Dusty May getting hired by Michigan, Kyle Smith getting hired by Stanford, and Danny Sprinkle getting hired by Washington. Next up, we'll look at the team that was the most surprising team that got upset, and that's the Kentucky Wildcats. Meanwhile, we'll then look at the team that's still alive in the NCAA Tournament, which is most surprising to me. That's the NC State Wolfpack. And lastly, I'll give you my starting five for the Marquette Holden Eagles with a sixth man who happens to still be playing. Let's get started in today's podcast with coaching news. First off, the biggest news of the week would be Dusty May leaving Florida Atlantic to go head to the University of Michigan. And a Dusty May that's done a fantastic job. Got to remember, folks, this guy spent 13 years as an assistant, Eastern Michigan, Murray State, UAB, Louisiana Tech, and then at Florida. His record at FAU was 126-69 with a 25-9 record. Obviously, we're going to talk about the fact that he took his team to the Final Four last year, and then obviously this year, a tough loss in overtime to Northwestern. But when you get someone like Dusty May, who went to Indiana, who's got Big Ten in his blood, and was at Indiana as a student manager under the great Bob Knight, he takes over for Juwan Howard, who really had a lot of problems. And I'm not talking about his last year with the losses. I'm talking about the incident with the strength coach this past year. I'm talking about the slap heard round the world, or mush, or whatever you want to call it, that happened with Greg Gard of Wisconsin a couple of years ago. So they go and get Dusty May, and they give him a $3.75 million a year contract for someone who's very deserving of this deal. When you look at Dusty May and what he did at Florida Atlantic. Now, he had to get some assurances, folks, because Dusty May was in demand. There was talk about Dusty May going to maybe Vanderbilt wanting him. There was a talk of Louisville wanting Dusty May. Obviously, in regards to Vanderbilt hiring the James Madison coach just a couple of hours ago. But Dusty May had to get assurances, and he got those. That would be an NIL money to make sure he got the NIL money he needed to support his program, and the ability to get grad transfers in maybe a little bit better than what happened in the past. Remember, folks, Caleb Love left North Carolina, originally committed to Juwan Howard, but didn't get into the grad school in Michigan. That's why Caleb Love ended up at the University of Arizona. So this is a great hire. Someone's got Big Ten roots. He's done a great job. He's built his way up as an assistant and will do a great job at the University of Michigan. And in a place where, for him, it's not as much pressure as you think, because he's never going to be the number one sport at Michigan. That's always going to be football. Let's move on to Kyle Smith getting hired at Stanford. And this is a Kyle Smith that has done a great job, if you think about, as an assistant coach on the West Coast at San Diego, right? Then going as an assistant to Air Force for a little bit and I do believe that was with Chris Mooney, before Chris Mooney went and ended up at Richmond. Then being at St. Mary's, and then ended up getting his first head coaching job at Columbia, and leading Columbia for, I do believe, 6 or so seasons before moving on to the University of San Francisco, where he did a great job there, winning 20 games per year. And then going to Washington State, which is a tough place to win, and turn that program around, and having 2 20-win seasons in 2 of the last 3 years there, with an NIT appearance in 22 and in 23, and of course, doing a great job in 23-24 with 25 wins. Career record at Washington State of 94-71. This is a guy that has coached, think about this, folks, Columbia, San Francisco, Washington State, especially with Columbia, folks, high academic institutions. So you're saying to yourself, well, why leave Washington State to go to Stanford? Very simple, folks. You got to remember, Stanford is part of that Pac-12 that broke up. They are now heading to the ACC, where you look at a school like Washington State, and they are going, I do believe, into the Mountain West Conference. So this is a step up for Kyle Smith. Oh, well, like I said, has coached at high academic institutions, and at 54 years old, was an assistant for a long time. We're talking about almost 20 years, and I think that's important as you see these hires of guys who cut their teeth as assistants, built their way up, went to low Division I programs, and worked their way up. Kyle Smith, a fantastic coach, and will be a great hire for the Stanford Cardinals, who haven't really been that top team since Mike Montgomery coached there a while back. Let's move on to Danny Sprinkle, a guy that, honestly, folks, another coach, assistant, long time, Cal State Northridge, Montana State twice, Cal State Fullerton, and then finally got his chance at Montana State and then Utah State, and just got hired today as the head coach at the University of Washington. And you think about Danny Sprinkle, and think about his meteoric rise he has, right? He takes over a Montana State team and goes 16-15, 13-10 first 2 years. Then goes 27-8, 25-10, makes back-to-back NCAA appearances, and then goes to Utah State. And in 1 year, taking over Ryan Odom, who went to VCU, went 28-7. Last 3 years, he was coaching. First in his league, second in his league, first in his league. And a guy that has really done amazing things, right? Big Sky Coach of the Year 2022. Mountain West Coach of the Year 2024. What a job Danny Sprinkle has done at Utah State, and an overall career record of 109-50. Folks, I'm going to keep saying this. When you go get these high major jobs, you can't just go get some flash in the pan, and especially don't go get someone who's never had head coaching experience at the Division I level. It's hard. Folks, I was an interim head coach. I coached 2 games, and I can tell you how hard it was for me as a first-time head coach at Division I level, just for a couple of games. Imagine taking over a program, a high major program, with no head coaching experience at the Division I level. So that is a very smart play by Michigan getting Dusty May, Stanford getting Kyle Smith, and Danny Sprinkle getting the job at Washington. So let's move on to the NCAA Tournament now. And let's talk about a team that was the most disappointing to me. And that's the Kentucky Wildcats. Folks, you've heard me say it alone. You heard me say it with John Fanta. You've heard me say it with Jeff Goodman. This was the critical year for Cal. And what do? They go and they lose 80-76 to Oakland. To Oakland, folks. And if you really think about this, look at the roster that Kentucky had. And they let a guy named Jack Golke get 32 points. I always told you the Achilles heel was Kentucky was their defense. How the heck do you let a guy get off 23-point attempts, 10 threes? Folks, do you know the number of 2-pointers that Jack Golke made this year? 2. Not in the game. Not in the NCAA tournament. Not in the postseason. The entire season. And they let this kid get off 23-point attempts. So it leads to the problems at Kentucky. Is Cal in trouble, folks? Folks, Antonio Reeves, Rob Dillingham, Shepard, Mitchell, DJ Wagner, Edwards, Bradshaw. This guy had arguably the most talented roster in the country. But that's the problem, folks. Aaron Bradshaw, freshman. Trey Mitchell, senior, transfer. Okay. Rob Dillingham, freshman. Justin Edwards, freshman. Antonio Reeves, okay, senior. Reed Shepard, freshman. DJ Wagner, freshman. What am I getting at, folks? You can't build a roster this way. You can't just go out and get the best McDonald's All-Americans and expect it to work. Cal's got to change his ways. And that's why I thought if he didn't make it to the Sweet 16, I thought that he was going to get run out of town. Now, there's 34 million reasons why he isn't getting run out of town, and that's his buyout. But let's be honest here, folks. Cal has underachieved his last couple of years in Lexington. And they're getting restless, folks. They're getting restless. You could talk about all that Cal has done for college basketball. And I'm not here to tell you that Cal isn't one of the best in the game. He is, folks. He is. But if you think about it, 1920, canceled, right? No COVID. 2021, 9-16. And then the last 3 years with all those talented kids, first round, second round, first round exit. What is Kentucky going to do? More importantly, what's Cal going to do? Is Cal going to change his ways and get a more cohesive team that fits better, or is he going to go and get the best pros? Folks, he gave up 79.7 points per game. And I was one that thought that the offense was going to carry him. Well, that's a problem when defense isn't your absolute. When you average 89 points per game and then you score 76, comes back to bite you, folks. Cal's got to do things differently. And Kentucky was my biggest disappointment of the NCAA tournament first weekend. But enough about the bad stuff. Let's go to the good stuff. And let's talk about the NC State Wolfpack and the job that they have done. Folks, 7-12. You know what that is, folks? They've won 7 games in a 12-day span. They were talking about this coach getting fired. And look at the job that they've done running through the ACC tournament, taking down Carolina in the final, right? So now you look at this team. Why? Why is it? Folks, first off, you got to talk about the play of DJ Horn. 16.7 points per game. Really had a big scoring game, particularly against UNC in the ACC tournament final, getting you 29 points. Fantastic performance for fouling out. But folks, I'm sorry. I like you, DJ Horn. You've done fabulous. But me, folks, Big Thickum, a.k.a. Thicky Smalls, a.k.a. Thick Van Exel, DJ Burns. Folks, 6'9", 275. DJ, holla at your boy. If you 275, I'm 205. But that's okay. Big men in the building. And this guy has been absolutely sensational the last 4 games. 19-5 in the semifinal versus UVA. 20-4 versus UNC. 16 points versus Texas Tech. And then 24-11-4 for Biggie, a.k.a. Big Thickum, a.k.a. Thicky Smalls, a.k.a. Thick Van Exel. This guy, for a big man, is so beautiful to watch. DJ Burns reminds me of the kid the guy, when you're an old man and you play against the young kids and you got that big butt, you just back him down in the low post. But then he's got that nimble footwork. I can tell you this. I can watch big men play all day. I can watch DJ Burns play twice on a Sunday. And it'll be an intriguing matchup coming up in the Sweet 16 on Friday night when NC State takes on Marquette and the South region. Nice doubleheader, folks. Think about that. NC State Marquette and then Houston Duke. I mean, that's a doubleheader that coach would sink his teeth into. But I can tell you, folks, I would not sleep. Listen, I did Bracket Central with Scotty Farrell this weekend and Kevin Walsh. Shout out to my guys. And there was a talk about, is this 83? Is this 83? Folks, when Scott Farrell was talking about 83, got to remember, that was the same scenario that Jimmy Valvano had. They weren't going to make the NCAA tournament. And they had to win, keep winning. And a funny thing that I remember, folks, two of the teams that they beat in the ACC tournament, Carolina, Virginia. Who did NC State just beat? Opposite order. Virginia and then Carolina. I'm not saying they win it all. I think it's a great story. I do think Marquette beats them. But shout out to the NC State Wolfpack and my favorite basketball player on the planet right now, Thicky Smalls, DJ Burns. Let's end today's podcast with talking about the team we just talked about, but not NC State. Let's talk about Marquette. Let me give you my starting five, my all-time lineup for the Marquette Golden Eagles. My starting lineup for the Marquette Golden Eagles at the guard spots. Glenn, we know him as Doc Rivers. Dwayne Wade. Jimmy Butler. Maurice Lucas. And Bo Ellis. So let's start with Glenn Doc Rivers. 3 seasons at Marquette. Great player in the late 70s, I do believe early 80s, I would say, for Glenn Doc Rivers at his time at Marquette. And Doc Rivers, who went on to have a really good pro career. You got to think about it. A guy like Doc Rivers, his numbers retired by Marquette. USA Basketball Mill Athlete of the Year in 1982. Had a fabulous career with Marquette. More known for what he's done in the NBA as a player and as a coach. Let's move on to arguably the greatest player in the history of Marquette, and that's Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade had a fantastic career at Marquette. Number 5 overall draft pick in that great class with LeBron and Bosh and Carmelo. Shout out to Darko Milicic. Darko Milicic. I mean, LeBron, Carmelo, Bosh, Wade. And they had Darko Milicic. Shout out to Larry Brown for not drafting Carmelo Anthony or Bosh or Dwayne Wade. He went and got Darko Milicic. Great job, Larry. Anyway, my producer Matt didn't like that too much. Must be a Pistons guy. But to me, when you think about Dwayne Wade and his career at Marquette, they were in the Conference USA, 2-time first team All-Conference USA, Player of the Year 2003, All-American third team 2002, first team All-American 2003. What a career Dwayne Wade had leading the Marquette Golden Eagles to the Final Four. And shout out to his point guard, really underrated player, Travis Diener. Let's move on to another great player in the NBA. Now, currently, it's Jimmy Buckets, Jimmy Butler, who had a great career at Marquette. Folks, you know that Jimmy Butler was a 30th draft pick? He only scored 12 points per game. Now, he also was a JUCO player. We got to remember that, folks. He only went to Marquette after going to JUCO, Tyler Junior College. And he had a great career at Marquette his 3 years. Wasn't a top prospect, right? Sophomore year average only about 5.6 points per game. Moved to starting lineup his junior year, 14.7, 6.4. Made honorable mention all Big East. And then obviously his senior year averaged about 15.7 points per game. Honorable mention Big East for the second straight year. Shout out to Jimmy Buckets, Jimmy Butler on my all-time team. Let's go to the power forward and to one of the baddest men on the planet. Y'all know about Maurice Lucas. Maurice Lucas, rest in peace, died in 2010. This dude was a tough dude. 14th overall pick in the 1974 NBA draft by the Chicago Bulls. Third-team All-American in 1974. One of the biggest and toughest hombres, enforcers in the history of the NBA. And what a career he had in the NBA. And leading Marquette team, coached by then Al McGuire, to the championship game in 1974. And had a huge game in a semifinal game versus Kansas with 18, 14, and 4 blocks. They would lose that final game to NC State. I do believe that was David Thompson, if I'm not mistaken, led that team. 21 points, 13 rebounds. Shout out to Maurice Lucas. What a tough guy. And true story, if I'm not mistaken, Maurice Lucas, I do want to say, was in a famous movie. If I'm not mistaken. I thought, and maybe I was wrong, I think Maurice Lucas was in White Man Can't Jump. I'm not sure about that. But Maurice Lucas, what a great, great, great player. I was wrong. It wasn't Maurice Lucas. I think that was Marcus Johnson. Another great NBA player. Let's move on to the center. Or I should say the center because he wasn't a center. And that's Bo Ellis. 4 seasons at Marquette. Played with Maurice Lucas his first year. And what a great player he was. 14.1 points per game, 9.1 rebounds. Right? Won a championship with Al McGuire. I do believe that was in 76 or 77. 77, I should say. I'm sorry. Second team All-American in 77 by the National Association of Basketball Coaches. Third team All-American AP. Number retired by the Marquette Golden Eagles. So my starting lineup for Marquette: Doc Rivers, Dwayne Wade, Jimmy Butler, Maurice Lucas, and Bo Ellis. But I got a spot for one more guy. I'm going to do a 6-man. And his name is Tyler Kolek. Oh, I can watch this guy play. It's amazing because when I was doing Bracket Central, I don't know if I said Saturday or Sunday. I think it was Sunday, yesterday. I compared Tyler Kolek to a better TJ McConnell. And Scotty Farrell made a good point. He's got a little bit of Steve Nash to him. Holds the ball on a string. Really good at getting people involved. Got a crazy finishing package. Tyler Kolek, who was Big East MVP last year. 22-23 Big East Player of the Year. 2-time All-Big East. Right? Third team All-American 2023. Second team All-American 2024. Right? Stat line against Colorado yesterday. 21, 11, and 5. Absolutely sensational. Anytime you need a bucket, you got a bucket. You need to get assists, you get an assist. This guy is so damn good. You got to appreciate the greatness of Tyler Kolek and the swag and the arrogance. What a player Tyler Kolek is. And I can't wait to see that matchup of Tyler Kolek this weekend versus NC State. Tip-off Friday, 7:09 p.m. Eastern Standard Time from Dallas. This has been your Betting Above the Rim podcast for March 25th, episode 40. For all things sports gambling, or just sports in general, download that Sports Grid app, available on Google Play and iOS store. It's your one-stop shop for everything pregame, in-game, post-game, props, predictions, and more from some of the best. You can actually find all of my podcasts on the Sports Grid app. Next podcast, episode 41, Wednesday, we'll preview all the games of the Sweet 16. For Matty George, for Vinny Jr., who does a great job with the graphics. This is Coach Young. It's been a pleasure to have you listen. Remember, folks, it's smarter to be on Sports Grid. Good night.